What we do here is go back.
Mic check, mic check. Check, mic check. Levels are good. We're good.
Is this thing on?
It's on?
It's on.
I think it's on. The InnerViews Podcast. We're going to get it right this time. Episode number 3. The weather is good. The Olympics have apparently started. The Toronto Raptors are first in the Eastern Conference. Drake apparently has another banger. And I'm here with my boy, the man, the legend, the stat king, the man of all men, Fabio, my boy, my guy, my dog. I ran out of anything I could say about you. What's going on? How are you? What's good?
We're back at it. It's going to be a good one this time around. Lots and lots to talk about.
I didn't know the Olympics started, by the way.
They actually did last Thursday.
Where is it?
Russia.
This is really...
Not Russia. Why did I say Russia? It's in South Korea.
Really?
See, look, I want to talk about soccer even though we're talking about the Olympics.
That's some poor advertising that I didn't know that the Olympics...
It's really been awful.
Does anyone really care?
I think the times don't help. It's all like, while we sleep, I guess while I sleep, because you don't sleep.
Yeah.
But during the middle of the night is when all the events are on.
Yeah, I was at a hotel this weekend and I saw it on TV and I was trying to just change it, and that's the only reason why I knew it was on. I was trying to watch something and it wasn't just Olympics. I was like, why are there so many people figure skating? Then I saw the logo and I was like, oh snap, nothing, no word about it. So,
and I find that's an issue too. Like, you have 10 channels and they're all playing the same event.
Yeah.
How can one person wants to watch figure skating across 7 different channels?
I'm pretty sure there has to be some other, unless that's the only event going on then.
I would assume not.
Yeah.
I would at least hope not.
Same.
The only reason why I even know the Olympics are going on is because there was all this uproar about the NHL not being there. So I'm sure that's why you don't even know.
True. Well, yeah.
That's why you don't even know that it's going on.
I didn't know people still, no offense to anyone, but I didn't know people still religiously watched the NHL in 2018. It kind of lost its flair. And I feel like it's the same thing happening in the NFL as well. A lot of North American sports, besides the NBA. I
think it's the other sports. It's not a knock on hockey players or on other sports, but I think it might be more so the owners. They don't let the players have a personality. Like, other than maybe like Ovechkin, who's somebody in the NHL that openly speaks their mind, there has some flair to them off the ice. Nobody. They're all like, they're very PR. They watch what they say. They don't ruffle any feathers. Nobody's got an opinion of something going on in the world.
Yeah, it's boring. Even when I see like PK doing like interviews and whatnot, it just feels so scripted and so robotic. I need to say this and this is what you want to hear, so I'm going to tell you this, and don't care.
No.
But that's good that the Olympics are going on. I'll try to catch something at some point.
You got to watch some curling, no?
No, I'll pass. Raptors are in first. I think that's a big thing to those who think that they're going to win the NBA Finals this year. Not going to say that they won't, because that will come back to bite me in the ass. But they're in first, so enjoy it, those that live in this great city that we also live in, because it's something that may not happen in a few years from now. Who knows what direction this franchise is going to go in, but they're in first. A lot of people that have followed this or have supported this team for years could never dream to see the Raptors consistently be in the top of the Eastern Conference. So it's big for the city. Shout out to them. They're probably going to be first heading into the All-Star break. We have 2 All-Stars. That's big. And hopefully they could continue this in the second half of the season, because LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers are coming. And as you can see by the trade deadline, they are not playing any games. And LeBron is looking, if this is going to be his final year, to go to the NBA Finals for another year.
But it makes it extra special because they're doing it in the LeBron era, don't you think?
Yeah, to an extent, but LeBron has kind of not cared about the regular season since he left Miami and realized that he doesn't have to burn himself out, because then he'll get burned out come June. So he's learned how to manage his energy levels well. He still plays a lot of minutes, but at what degree, how much are we getting out of LeBron James in the regular season in comparison to the postseason? There's a huge significance. So hey, they're in first. No one could say anything about them. And I think that's good enough. I'm happy enough with that.
Do they have any chance?
If
A
LeBron loses, well, if things don't go right there, I think it will. Cleveland have gotten younger, better in terms of defensively, and guys that could actually shoot the three, so they should be fine. Do they have a chance? If we go by what we saw yesterday and when Cleveland annihilated Boston, they don't have a chance. But with the Raptors, can Kyle and DeMar actually step up when it matters? That's consistently step up when it matters in the postseason. That's huge. You don't bet against a LeBron James team. That's just in the Eastern Conference. You don't do it just yet. Year after year, we hear that's going to be over, and he continues to prove us wrong. And he's playing great basketball. He just needs a decent supporting role, and I think he's got one now. So 70, I'll give them a 30% chance. Maybe that's even too nice. Maybe 20.
That's not bad. They have to prove themselves.
Yeah. Until they do, we have no reason
it's
to...
all speculation, really.
Invest so much into them.
I feel like it would be nice, though, to have a deep run again. The city comes alive when the Raptors are doing well. I guess when any sports franchise is doing good.
Yeah.
And it's strange to see, not strange, but we're not accustomed to seeing mostly across the board all the franchises doing quite well in Toronto.
Yeah. And I feel like this is the right time to be here. So everything is going well. I mean, if you care about the Argos, the Blue Jays had their bit of a run a few seasons back. The Leafs look to be heading in the right direction. The Raptors have been there time and time again. And they're just unfortunate to be doing this during the final stretch of the LeBron James era. So,
and shout out to TFC.
Yeah, shout out to TFC.
We should probably give them a little bit of a shout out.
Yeah, we'll talk about them in a few weeks. Their season's getting started soon.
Champions League for them is coming up shortly.
Yeah, and we'll see if they're going to not prove me wrong, but live up to the expectations, the high expectations I set for them, because they spend a lot of money and have a lot of great players in comparison to everyone else in the league, and they should be doing what they did last season. So
it's really all on them. It will be a disappointment if they don't at least reach a final again.
Yes, because I'm pretty sure they've kept
everybody
of the core.
Other than Beta Shore, but they've upgraded. And they lost Raheem Edwards, but they're fine in that area as well. I'm pretty sure they lost someone else, but in terms of the major players, everyone is still there. So, and their attack, which everybody always talks about, is still there. So
yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes in terms of Jovinko. Can he get any better than what we've seen? Have teams actually figured out how to stop him? And I'm interested to see how Josie Altidore builds on what was an impressive playoff run.
You wonder if they've, I don't want to say plateaued.
Yeah.
But you expect to see some progression, and I don't know.
And more importantly, sorry to cut you off, Michael Bradley, because I was very harsh on him throughout last season, and I thought he played very well in the playoffs. Was that a one season? Was he a one season?
A one-off.
Yeah, was that a one-off? We'll see.
We hope not. They have all the tools to make another deep run. It'd be nice to see them compete in the Champions League.
Yeah, I think it's
going to be key for them.
That's a huge stepping stone for the team, the franchise in general, and I think we're privileged to be here to see that happen, and they should make the most of it and really push for it. They've won the league, and I'm pretty sure they'll be there in the fall, barring long-term injuries. So why not make a deep Champions League run, push for it, put all into it, and try and do something big? Maybe go to the FIFA World Club Championship.
That would be...
And play the winner of the Champions League next season.
That would definitely be something to see.
Or potentially play. But that's basically what we got on the agenda prior to what happened this weekend. But what was the big talking point this weekend? What's on your mind? What's cracking? What do you want to talk about?
It was a pretty hectic weekend overall. So we've seen a lot of different matches from across all the leagues. The big teams sort of kept with it, other than United, really.
So are we starting with United?
I feel like I just want to see you shoot your shots at United, because I feel like it's just coming.
No, I'm in a good mood this week. So I'm in a good mood today, if anything. So I don't know if I'm gonna go in that direction with United. If I was in a bad mood, maybe I would just take it all out on them, since I'm apparently notorious for doing that. United lost to Newcastle this weekend. United have now dug themselves a bit of a hole. The league is done. They're 16 points back. City need to win like 6 games, and the league is finished, completed, over with, done with. And we now have United in the situation where I think they're only 3 points ahead of Liverpool. 2 points ahead of Liverpool.
They've dragged themselves right back into that huge mix.
3 points ahead of Chelsea, 4 points ahead of Spurs, and now it's going to be a real dogfight for those final Champions League spots because only one will miss out of the 3 teams that I've mentioned, or 4. But, you know, if one of these English teams win the Champions League, that writes off everything, or if one of them win the Europa League, Arsenal, it really puts them in the right direction. So when we look at that, we have to say that this was a big loss for United. But I don't think they played that bad. I think they played bad. No, I'll retract that statement. I think they didn't play great, but they should have won the game.
Yeah, you expect them to.
And like we've said over the past few weeks since we've done this podcast and videos, that United haven't played well this season, but based off their individual talent, they've been able to win games, and it felt like that was going to happen at Newcastle. I think Mourinho has a very bad record at Newcastle, and they should have won. Let's be real. They should have won. Martial's breakaway should score, but he's too right-footed to place that far post, and it was denied near post. Martial, free header, missed. Alexis Sanchez rounds the keeper, doesn't score. Was it Alexis that had that chance where it was blocked twice in the box by
that
Dwight?
was Martial.
Martial, blocked twice by Dwight Gale.
Yeah.
That happened as well, and it just felt like nothing was going their way. The one positive I take from that was I thought Romelu Lukaku was excellent, and I've been one of the people that have been very harsh on Lukaku because despite him being excellent, I don't think he's a Manchester United quality or Manchester United-esque striker. I don't think he's fit to play that role for a Manchester United side that can contend for the title or contend in Europe. His growth, we'll wait and see. This could be premature, but I'm speaking as of right now. I don't think he's that guy to be that main striker up front, but he played very well. He linked play well. He spun around into the channels while he created chances. He probably should have scored if teammates passed him the ball quicker. Cough, cough, Alexis Sanchez. But I thought this was what you expect from Romelu Lukaku on a weekly basis. And if he could deliver a performance like this on a weekly basis instead of standing up front at the top isolated on an island and not really trying to get involved, not really varying his movement, then United should be fine. But I thought he was good. But the main talking point, before we even get to Newcastle, because they deserve some respect, is Paul Pogba. He is in the limelight. Mourinho defended him this week, questioning what others were stating as a box-to-box midfielder, giving his definition of what Paul is and what he brings to the midfield. And Paul was dropped the week prior, and he didn't start. He came off the bench, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
McTominay started.
Yep.
And Paul got the start in a game that, you know, United would love to win. They're at Newcastle. Set the record straight. Show what you're worth.
You expect him to boss a game like this, really.
And Paul Pogba didn't.
No.
He failed. He flopped. It has not been a great run for Paul Pogba. He's not in the greatest form. And I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. But what did you think of United before?
I'm not a fan of the way Mourinho's using Pogba. I don't think he has the qualities on the defensive side to be used in a two-man midfield. I think it puts a lot of pressure on him. Like, don't get me wrong, he can play a wicked ball out of the back, but that's all you've been able to see him do lately. He hasn't done much other than that. He's not the type of player who is going to pick up the ball from Matic and take it up the field. I think, personally, he's better when he has very little to no defensive responsibilities. He's strong on the ball, but he's not that aggressive defensive player who's going to play the position that Mourinho currently has him playing. I think they're better off playing a three-man midfield with even somebody like Carrick or McTominay with him and Matic. I think it would work a lot better and free him from the responsibility of needing to get back. Because when he doesn't track back or he gets caught out of position, Matic is left alone. And then there's way too much space in the midfield for whoever the opposition is to come at United.
Kind of reminds me of when Matic was playing under Mourinho with Cesc Fabregas and the same issue there. Although I think, well, it could be the same kind of situation. Paul Pogba they spent a lot of money on Paul Pogba. The type of money that you expect that when you bring in that player, you expect him to make a difference. That's what they expected from Paul Pogba. That's what Mourinho wanted Paul Pogba for. He is 24. He is turning 25 next month. He is slowly entering his peak years because it feels like he's been around for a while. So we're not here trying to axe him, okay? But when Paul Pogba came, we thought he was going to play 4-3-3. We thought it was going to be Herrera, Pogba, Matic. When they've played that this season, Paul Pogba's looked very good. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Ander Herrera, and clearly Mourinho sees something in Ander Herrera that's not right, but he used him to the best that he could last season, and now he can't get a game in. So are you going to play McTominay with Pogba and Matic? Does that work? Are you going to put Carrick in there, who I don't think has many... I think he's done after the season, right? He's going to join the coaching staff, something along those lines. But I don't think you could consistently play Michael Carrick in that role. That's why it was so key that they got Fabinho. That's why it was so key that they were supposed to bring in, that they want to bring in Eric Dyer. And I thought that maybe it was Matic or Dyer. I don't think they could have brought in both. But they need a defensive midfielder. Paul Pogba, it looks like he's the type of player that can only play in a midfield three as a shuttler, where he gets a bit of freedom to bomb forward and play a bit higher up the pitch or be able to roam around a bit. And that's why when he was bought for that fee, Juventus did not fear, or they weren't worried to sell him, because those who have followed Paul Pogba during his time at Juventus know that he was never once their best midfield player during his time there. It was never his team. It was never his midfield. It was Vidal's midfield. It was Pirlo's midfield at some point. It was Marquisio's midfield at some point. It was never Paul Pogba. So for them to let him go for the amount of money that they got, and the fact that they haven't even declined in that aspect, they're fine with that. Now, what does Mourinho do with it? Well, it's tough because I don't think he's the coach that Pogba needs to elevate to the status that Pogba was anticipated to reach. And it's sad to say, but if Paul Pogba was on the other side of Manchester, I'm guaranteeing you he'd be playing much better than he is now. And we'd see the Paul Pogba that we expected, that some were saying that could potentially be a Ballon d'Or winner in years to come. I don't see that in Paul Pogba.
Definitely hasn't shown it one bit.
And you're right, it could be the system. It could
I don't think it helps him. It doesn't help him at all.
No. And like I said last week, it was the same thing that happened for France when it was him and Matuidi, and they struggled, and that's why they didn't win the Euro, when they should have probably played a 4-3-3, but they tried to get the best out of Antoine Griezmann and for France in Euro 2016, when they probably should have played Conte, then had Matuidi on one side, Pogba on the other side, stick Griezmann on the flanks. It's a final. You need to control the midfield. You need to dominate the game, and you need to get the best out of your best players, specifically in midfield, given the midfield that Portugal had at Euro and how organized and compact and disciplined they were, and they didn't do that. And Paul Pogba's suffering the same fate here. And it's funny because that Alexis Sanchez January buy is slowly being... It's very quiet, those talks. Alexis Sanchez played here at Newcastle. He was okay.
I don't like him in the middle. I know you probably think the opposite to me, but I don't like seeing him in the middle one bit.
Well, he started on the left, and he destroyed... Well, I thought Yedlin had a terrible game, and I've seen Yedlin play a few times this season. That was by far the worst performance I've seen from him. And Sanchez exposed that. When he's in the middle, it's not really working. And
I don't know if it's like a him and Lukaku thing, or like he's just surrounded by too many players, and I don't know.
Well, there's no combination yet. There's no partnership developed yet. And the thing with Alexis, he likes to play himself into those danger spots for no reason whatsoever. kind of like Pogba, where they like to overtouch the ball and put themselves into positions that they don't really need to be in, and it doesn't really benefit. They kind of take 2 steps back before they make 1 forward. And what we're seeing with Alexis Sanchez is what we thought we would see in the fact that other players are being forced to sacrifice for him. Because before Alexis Sanchez came to the team, Jesse Lingard was playing very well. Didn't see much of Jesse Lingard yesterday.
No.
Anthony Martial was playing well on the left. And now he's playing on the right. The last few players that have played on the right for a Mourinho side have been forced to sacrifice. And for the player on the left side's freedom, Eden Hazard, Cristiano Ronaldo, and those sacrificees were Angel Di Maria and Willian, who had to sacrifice their creativity for the better of those individual talents. We're kind of seeing that with Anthony Martial now, who has no left foot. None whatsoever. None. And his best plays in that game were when he drifted to the left and combined with Alexis Sanchez. And he could break in beyond, but you're not getting the best out of him. And once again, another move by Manchester United to stunt his growth. Because with Lukaku coming in, we thought perhaps Rashford or Martial would play up front. That didn't happen. So they moved them to the left. Martial starts playing well at the left, here and there, not consistently. But now it looked like he had a consistent path. Alexis Sanchez comes in now. And you kind of wonder, what do the United board, what do they expect from these young players? Because they're not being given the chance to play in the roles that they need to play and to develop to get better, and it just feels like wasted time for them. And I feel like they're probably feeling the same way, and if it continues this way, that they're going to have to make a big decision, because the way I look at it, perhaps why doesn't Martial play behind Lukaku? Why don't you put Lingard on the right? Lingard's a player that could sacrifice. Why not play Alexis from the left? But United have a lot of issues. They have a lot of issues.
A lot of balance issues. It comes down to the balance talk that we've had before.
Yeah.
It's a very unbalanced team.
From top to bottom, Phil Jones, Chris Smalling, I know how you feel about them.
Yeah, not a big fan.
Ashley Young and Antonio Valencia didn't really get into the game, and that's kudos to Kennedy and Matt Ritchie, who scored the winner. I think Kennedy's a big signing for Newcastle. It gives them something different, and the fact that he could be disciplined on the flank really helps them out as well.
Ran his socks off, too.
Yeah. Jonjo Shelvey.
He bossed that midfield.
Probably the best game I've seen from Jonjo. Probably the best game we'll ever see from Jonjo Shelvey.
He was very good.
But Newcastle, sometimes you need to make your luck. They made a few last-ditch tackles, a few last-ditch blocks. They're fully worthy of the 3 points. Not to say that Manchester United couldn't win the game, but when we look at it, it just seems like it's, once again, too individualistic, too much reliance on those key moments, those match-winning moments, opposed to having control of the game and taking it to the other team and dominating for large spells. And once again, we go back to how they fit in Alexis Sanchez. What does Paul Pogba offer to this team? And seems like 2 years ago when I was questioning why United bought Paul Pogba for so much money, and I questioned whether he'd fit in, it seems like it's all coming to fruition right now. Still a bit early. Things could change. They could buy a defensive midfielder. But I don't know if this is really going to work out for Pogba. Still early days.
And it feels like Mourinho's kind of been stubborn in trying to keep the same system and not change. Almost like what you've said about Conte and only having one deck of cards and like one way of doing things, where he hasn't shown any difference of style, really. They play the same style over and over and over again, and if it doesn't work, then there really is no second option.
Yep. And it's coming now. United are in a dogfight. Now they got to win games, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that works out, because it looks like they're clear of Arsenal, but with Spurs, Chelsea, Liverpool breathing down their necks, and they play Chelsea in a few weeks, and I'm pretty sure they have to play Liverpool again, and they still have to play City. It's going to be interesting. And if they get past Sevilla in the Champions League, there are more games to play, and Mourinho needs to figure it out, or he just needs to get over the line. And they should be able to do it, but they just keep digging themselves in, and that's not good for them. And it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But with them losing, then we got to go to the bigger game in the weekend, and that was the North London derby. Spurs 1, Arsenal 0. Harry Kane the winner. Spurs now, that looks like it's the end of Arsenal, as we put it. But what did you think? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, that definitely puts Arsenal too far out of touch. 7 points out. I definitely don't think they can recoup that with still some big games left to play. And they just seem out of touch right now. But Spurs played well. Kane, hell of a finish. I'll give him that much. It was a great ball by Davies into him. And he did what Kane does and what he's shown to do and finish the opportunity that he gets. I thought Spurs could have very well been out of sight. I think Arsenal's almost, I don't want to say Arsenal was lucky, but it could have been much worse than what the scoreline actually showed.
You know, I thought Arsenal played pretty. I didn't think they played bad in the first half.
No.
I thought they did pretty well for most part of it. They tried to counterattack. They sat deep. Spurs were trying to run and gun them, and they looked like they were going to get picked off a few times, but just the final quality, it wasn't there. Wilshere, Mkhitaryan had a chance. Crosses were very poor. There's one Mkhitaryan cross where he just like skied it. And I was like, whoa, like that should not be happening at this level. And it was a good battle. I mean, the Dembele versus Wilshere battle was always going to be interesting. Mesut Ozil wasn't really at it. And considering that they how much money, that big contract, these are the games that you expect him to really make a difference, put his stamp on the game. That didn't really happen. Mkhitaryan was kind of in and out. And Arsenal, I don't know what happened to them, but after that Kane goal went in, they kind of started the second half sluggish because that happened and no one closed down Davies. And then after that, there was Dyer who created a better chance for Kane and no one closed down Dyer. It seems like they were tired from pressing, but this is just at the start of the second half. So, like, what went wrong?
They shut off for the beginning of the half.
And then they were just getting forward and forward. Kane had another chance. Czech made the save. And then the Eriksen free kick that Czech made another big save. And then they kind of switch it up and they bring on Lacazette. They bring on Iwobi. And I'm really worried about Lacazette. I think his confidence is shot. I know that a lot of foreign players, when they come to England, the first season is the hardest, more so the second half of the season because they get fatigued and they're not used to not having winter break. We've discussed this. But the fact that they brought in Aubameyang looks like it's really shot his confidence because he probably should have. Well, after Spurs missed like a jillion chances in the second half,
a handful of efforts, yeah.
He missed probably the best chance, and it was just an unconfident finish. And he did everything right. Broke across Vertonghen, broke across Sanchez. He's free on goal. It was funny that Iwobi played the pass too from deep.
Yeah,
and he has Lloris beaten, and he just scuffs it under him and wide. It never looked like he looked certain to finish it.
Yeah, it wasn't a confident finish at all.
And the Arsenal, for all the good they did in the first half, besides playing that final ball in the counterattack, they crumbled. And that's an indictment on the manager. That's an indictment on the players. I mean, you can't play on the counterattack and then concede so many clear-cut chances and get carved open. Like Lamela was breaking free for Tong. Like there was just, I couldn't name you how many chances there were. That's how many chances there were. And it just goes to show the gulf in class between Spurs and Arsenal, the difference between the two clubs right now, where one is building something organically and Arsenal don't really have an identity. I don't know if that's fair to say. But they look like they're going to have to win the Europa League if they want to be the Champions League next season. And if they miss out, I don't know where that leaves the club. I don't know if that's the final plug that they pull on Wenger. We could go on for hours about that. But if we're just looking on the basis of this game, I thought they were good, and then Spurs went on a bit of a riot. And
Spurs almost did what they did last week when they came out in the second half and like flicked a switch and just were on from the beginning, the moment the half started to right till the end. They just outclassed their opponent.
It's the same. We saw it with Liverpool. We saw it with Manchester United. They've had a really rough stretch of games, but they've done well.
It's almost worked in their favor, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you're playing these these top opponents week in and week out, and there's no shutting off. You can't shut off against these teams. You got to keep it going all game. And that's almost what Arsenal lacks. Arsenal had a good first half, but they shut off, like you said, from the beginning of the second half onwards.
And I thought Spurs kind of let them back into the game when they replaced Ali and brought on Wanyama. They kind of sat a bit too deep, didn't really get close, but there was only that one chance that really made the difference. Spurs have a lot of depth. I don't think that gets talked about enough. They have a lot of depth where now they don't have to play. They're playing their best four because their best four are in form, showing no signs of fatigue. Apart from Harry Kane, we'll get to that in a bit. But they have guys that can bring off the bench in Wanyama and Lamela. Lucas Moura hasn't even made his debut
They didn't
yet.
even use him.
You know, Harry Winks, like, he started off the season very well. He hasn't been used in a while. They have so many different options, even off the bench. There are some ridiculous reports that Toby Alderweireld may not be needed, which is totally ludicrous. He's probably the best center back in the league when fit.
I believe he wasn't even included in their Champions League squad.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. I just think that's something where they don't want to rush him back into it. They have time, they have depth, so they don't need to throw him into the Juventus game just because he's fit. They can ease him back in and ensure that he's able to play the rest of the season, and if they make a deep run in the Champions League, so that's nothing to really worry about. But Spurs look like they're hitting form at the right time, and they've really probably iced Arsenal, and I think that's going to make them even happier. And regards to Harry Kane, he scored again. I think he's going to break the record this year, the Premier League record for most goals in a Premier League season, because I think right now he's on 23. I'm pretty sure he's on
23 and Salah's on 21 or 22?
22 because Salah scored.
Yeah, he's just one behind.
Yeah. So Harry Kane is on 23. I think he's going to break it. He should have broke it last year, but he was out for 2 months. He was out for 2 months last season, and I'm pretty sure he finished with like 29. I'm pretty goddamn sure he finished with 29, and I'm going to check that right now. Harry Kane, 2006, 29, okay? And he missed 2 months.
That's potentially 6-7 matches?
Yeah. He should have hit like probably 40 last year or 35. And now I think he's going to do it this year. But there's a bit of a worry. I don't know if he's fatigued. He's been missing a lot of great... He scored the toughest chance that he got over the weekend. But he's been missing some really simple finishes.
And it goes back the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
He just seems to not have his shooting boots on.
Goes back to United, goes back to Liverpool. I don't know if he's fatigued. Well, that's a big worry because he's up against a different prospect tomorrow. Different prospect, or by the time that you're listening to this today. But he's up against a different prospect in Juventus, a team that could defend very well as a unit, individually, a team that can control games, something that they're not used to in the Premier League. And I think it's going to be really interesting. But in terms of this game, Spurs, Arsenal's defensive issues, once again, their discipline, their awareness, they kind of switched off. And I think Spurs were worthy of 3 points, and it could have been a riot.
Very well could have been, especially in the second half. Yeah. But I didn't like, almost to go back to Ozil, I didn't like keeping him on the right side of the field. I believe he's better going either in behind the strikers or somewhere in the middle. I feel like he's wasted on the flank. He's not going to beat players with his speed, 1v1. And I feel like he doesn't get his full range of passing can't be shown out on the wing. And then when they brought in Iwobi was the player who played centrally, and Ozil was still out wide.
Yeah.
It didn't make much sense.
Ozil kind of got better throughout the game when he kind of dropped off into those positions or moved centrally. It's just the fact that in those big games, I don't think Arsenal have the personnel to allow him the freedom to play the way he wants to play, or to give him that. He hasn't given them a reason for him to be handed that number 10 role in a big game and be able to dominate it so that they could play that way. So that's why they don't do it. And I think the same thing happened with Germany as well, is that we saw what happened with them in Euro 2012, where they did give Ozil the freedom. And at that time, he was arguably a top 5 player in the world. And what happened when they played Italy was that Italy played more of a 4-4-2 diamond, where they had, I'm pretty sure it was Balotelli, had a Di Natale, and then they had Pirlo, De Rossi, Montalivo, and I think it was Marquisio in midfield, and they just ran the show. And Germany needed another midfielder in there, And that was a time where I was the person that was pledging for Toni Kroos to be thrown in there because I saw what he did for Bayern Munich prior to that, where he could play at the tip of the number 10 role and then drop in and make a midfield three, but he wasn't trusted. And Ozil was there, and he floated out of the game. And Italy dominated the center of the pitch. And I don't think Arsenal have the personnel, because if you play him there, then who do you play behind him? Xhaka and Elneny? Well, where does Jack Wilshere play? Do you play Wilshere and Xhaka? I don't think against a Spurs side you could risk that and give Ozil that freedom and rely on Ozil to get the job done. And I think that's why he plays out wide. I don't think you could drop him. So that's the other issue that they have.
They almost have too many attacking options to work with. It's almost hindered their shape and their balance.
Well, yeah, that's the other problem too, right? And that goes into how they've spent their money and locating players. And they haven't really looked to find a destructive dynamo after Xhaka, and they're really riding with that, and it hasn't really paid off. So that just goes to what Arsenal have done, and it's been the trend in the Premier League. We've discussed that before, and yeah, Ozil has to play on the right or he has to play on the left in a big game because they don't really have anywhere else they could play him. They could play him in midfield. They've tried that, and it's worked here and there. I don't know why maybe they were fearful that he wouldn't be able to deal with the press, but they had him out wide. Ben Davies got ahead of him on a few occasions, and they kind of struggled in that aspect, and he never really got going from start to finish, and that's Arsenal in a nutshell.
Speaking of keeping up with the title or keeping up with the scoring race, Liverpool beat Southampton as well.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say about that. Southampton are in a bit of a hole. If we're talking about a team that I don't think has an identity, it's definitely them. I wanted to ask if you knew much about this Carrillo, the striker. If you know,
I've watched a little bit of him last year for Monaco.
Yeah,
He definitely comes with a heavy price tag, being the most expensive player in club history or most expensive transfer to come to Southampton. So he definitely has that weight on his shoulders. I didn't think he was too bad, to be quite honest. I think Liverpool took the couple chances they really had. I didn't think Southampton...
they took like the first chance.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't think Southampton was terrible at all. Another case where their defender makes a bad mistake 5 minutes in, and Liverpool's there to pounce on it, like we've seen them do all year long.
Well, I'm not going to say they were awful. They started poorly. If you concede a goal in the first 5 to 10 minutes, you didn't start the game well. That's just how it goes. Van Dijk he came to play against his former side, which is not a surprise. They never really coped with Salah's movement. He was moving from the right to central positions. I think Bertrand there was a lot of space, so Salah could either move central or he can move out wide. But even besides that, I just didn't think they had their chances. Karius made, I think, 2 big saves in the first half.
Yeah, he had one in the 17th minute.
Yeah.
Hoyt or whatever.
That was a Højbjerg.
Yeah, Højbjerg.
When Romeo clipped the ball and then Robertson just misjudged it. That was awful defending, by the way. And, Southampton weren't bad, but they weren't great. And for a team that currently sits 18th in relegation, and I know a lot of them are in there, but for a team that's at home against a Liverpool side that you can get at and you can devise a plan to beat, I don't think they really looked like a side that were desperate enough or in desperation mode to really get a result. And I think the days are slowly being numbered for Pellegrino because they have the players there that can get the job done. Like Dusan Tadic isn't a bad player. James Ward-Prowse isn't a bad Premier League player. Højbjerg is a good young player.
Lamina is a good young player.
Yes, they have the pieces there. I'm a bit worried about their center backs. I don't think they're that good.
No.
And that's the big worry. And then they have 2 good fullbacks in Bertrand.
Who get up the field well. And they showed that in this game.
Bertrand and Cedric. After the second goal, I kind of just left it where it was going to be.
There wasn't much after that.
And I think there were 2 great goals, by the way. I think it was a great finish from Firmino, and I think the 1-2, which bisected both the center backs, was a great finish for Salah. And that's his 22nd goal of the season. That's his 22nd Premier League goal, 29th of the season. And then he's going to break it too I think they're both going to break it. I think Kane and Salah are going to break it. And I think that's a bit crazy given that it's Mo Salah.
It's first season.
Yeah.
I don't think Liverpool...
First like full season as a starter.
Yeah, I don't think Liverpool could have ever imagined him doing what he's doing.
He's overachieved. I'll give him that. And he's playing very well. And I know last week we talked about how Kevin De Bruyne is the best player in the Premier League. Salah deserves his credit too. I feel like I kind of did him dirty in that aspect where I didn't give him credit. He's played very well this season, and he should be in the running for the PFA Player of the Year. I don't think he'll win it, but I think he should be up there with Kane, with De Bruyne. I think probably with a few other players off the top of the head. Those are the three that come out to mind. And he's been great. He's been scoring goals for fun. He has been one of the reasons why they were able to let Philippe Coutinho walk, and I think he is better than Philippe Coutinho, and he's showing that, and he's scoring goals. I know it's been one great season, but I don't think Philippe Coutinho has ever delivered on this level with this consistency for Liverpool Football Club, and it's a bit crazy to think that it's him doing this, because I don't think they've had such a marksman, and he's not even like a marksman like Fernando Torres. He hasn't reached the levels that Fernando Torres reached when he was at Liverpool, but in terms of the numbers, they're up there, and we're in February. So unless he goes on some crazy drought, he should break it. And yeah, Liverpool keep pace. They're winning games, and I think that's the most important thing for them. The league is done. They were never in contention to win the league, but they look good. They keep winning games. That's all that matters. Builds on this, and in the Champions League, we'll get to them eventually.
They keep winning the games they should win.
Yeah.
Which is not always the case with a lot of teams.
Yeah.
So that's impressive in its own right.
And that's all that matters. You just need to win those games. And they're doing it their way. I'm still not fully convinced on the way that they play, but kudos to them. And the fact that they are now in third within touching distance of Manchester United is good for them, because I don't think they expected that. And a lot of those ties possibly should have been wins, so they could have been further up the table. You got to give them credit where it's due. Anything else you want to add on Liverpool?
They've played well. Am I fully behind that midfield? I can't fully get behind it. I don't think it's the best combination of players, really. I think it can be, and it's shown to be breaking down at times, and it can be bypassed. Can is a good player, but is he a natural stopper? Is he going to be the guy who's going to stop those threats all the time? No, because in the big games he's shown that he can't be. Do I think Ox is a true center midfielder or can play that position? No, I don't think so either. And Wijnaldum, he's okay. And what other options do they really have other than those three? Lallana and Henderson have been hot and cold, and that's pretty much Liverpool's midfield.
The one defense I give to them is that when Klopp was at Dortmund, I don't think their midfield was they were slightly better. But I don't think they were filled with world beaters. So I don't know if it's just the fact of the system or...
I think your midfield doesn't need to be full of world beaters. I think it just needs to have a good combination. Yeah.
They had the good balance.
Yeah, and I just feel like they don't exactly have that balance with these 3 or 4, whoever they decide to put out.
But the style that they play, it kind of works for them, and I think that's the reason why I haven't put that on their top things that they need to address come in the summer. A lot of people said that the goalkeeper was one, but Karius is headed in the right direction. We'll see how he develops over the final months of the season. And people thought that they needed a commanding center back, and Van Dijk looks to be that, but there's still questions about Matip and Lovren, who are capable of making mistakes, and this is one game for Van Dijk, and we'll see how he develops. I don't think the back four was that great, to be honest, throughout the game. I don't think Alexander-Arnold was good. I don't think Robertson was good. I don't think Matip was that great. So
they're a team that can be exposed.
Yeah.
And I guess they've shown that, and we'll see how it goes this week in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Can any team get on top of them? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not a good thing to say, right?
Yeah.
They start strong or they struggle.
Yeah.
It's almost one or the other. They're on two ends of the spectrum.
That's fair. like I said, I have nothing else to really say about them, but I thought that game was pretty straightforward, and for the early goal kind of set the tempo, and I don't think they were really tested.
Yeah.
So I didn't really learn too much from that. I think we'll learn a lot more about Liverpool come the Champions League.
Yeah, their midweek game will be big.
Yeah. Chelsea won today. Not much to really talk about that. I guess like last week. It's good that they play on Monday nights, so we don't have to talk about it. They won 3-0. Apparently, Eden Hazard is back for like the umpteenth time this season, but they won, so Conte is not getting
Safe for another week?
He's safe for another week.
It's like a roller coaster of emotions.
It sounded like he was getting sacked last week.
Yeah,
So the fact that he still has his job, kind of is good for him, I guess.
And they've almost come out and like backed him now. It took all that stuff for them to finally say something about him and be like, we're not firing him.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting how that works. They had to be backed into a corner essentially to say something good about their manager.
Well, I think, and this is just my opinion, there has to be something in the contract where if they sack him, they have to owe him like an absurd amount of money. And I think they may be waiting until the end of the season.
And that clause is over?
Yeah, for them to part ways so they don't owe him that much. But I don't think he's the problem, and I don't think they should let him go. And they won today 3-0. I know West Brom is in deep, deep danger, but those talks of him being sacked could resurface in the next few weeks when they have to face Barcelona, when they go to the Etihad, when they go to Old Trafford, because I'm pretty sure that first game was at Stamford Bridge. So
we'll see.
We'll see. The clock is ticking, but
they are getting their players back at a decent time.
Yeah.
Morata and Willian played today.
Yeah.
So that gives one positive.
Yeah.
But Alonso didn't play.
Yeah.
Which I heard he has some little injury or something like that.
Apparently.
Yeah. So who knows what that is all about. Which is interesting because Zappacosta played on that side instead of Palmieri. Isn't that why they got Palmieri, I would assume?
Yeah. With Conte, he kind of slowly integrates players into his side, and they have to be up to fitness and understand what he demands from them. So that could be the weight. But I think if Alonso isn't fit, they're going to have to eventually bring him in. The one key thing that I take from that, without watching the game, and we'll break that down, probably have that up with the podcast as well when you watch it, is that Christensen came back. Gary Cahill was dropped. David Luiz wasn't in the squad. And I think it's about time that they kind of end this. I know Gary Cahill has been a good servant to the club, and he's had a great Chelsea career in terms of the trophies that he's won. But perhaps it's time to, kind of how Conte last season dropped the ball on Terry and Ivanovic, and maybe time to drop the ball on Gary Cahill because he makes far too many mistakes, and teams expose his pace and his decision-making in certain moments aren't that great. And perhaps the Rudiger, Christensen, Azpilicueta back three is the best back three going forward for Chelsea. And that could be something that we see in the next few weeks because Gary Cahill, I don't think he should be starting for a club that's looking to contend for the Premier League title and looking to contend in the Champions League.
He's definitely a step behind nowadays.
Yeah. That's another big problem for England this summer that we will be discussing if they have to turn to him. But I think that's all we could really say about Chelsea right now without going too deep into it.
One interesting thing on the other side, guess who came off injured? Daniel Sturridge.
Oh, yeah. Westbrook. Yeah.
So nothing seems to change with him, really. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, very unfortunate. And West Brom kind of have themselves dug deep into a little hole right now in terms of the table.
Yeah, they sit 5 points back now.
But I think the way their schedule works, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they face a lot of the bottom half teams, and they need to win like at least more than half of those games if they want to see a light at the end of the tunnel, because if they don't, then they're going to be in deep trouble. So it's not looking too good over at West Brom. And I don't know. There's so many teams at the bottom that things could change with every passing week.
Literally, yeah, on a weekly basis.
the thing about it is that a lot of those teams are within a game or two of each other. If West Brom start losing those games against teams where it's potentially a 6-pointer, they have no room for error over these next few weeks. They need some results somewhere in those 6 games.
This is very well going to come down to like the last game potentially for these last couple spots.
The way it's looking right now, yeah. And when I look at it from top to bottom, I could tell you that Arsenal's safe.
Yeah.
I can tell you that Burnley's going to be fine. I can tell you that Leicester's going to be fine. I can tell you that Everton's going to be fine. Bournemouth should be fine.
West Ham look like they're turning a corner slightly.
Newcastle will be fine. Where I'm worried...
Bottom's 5 there. Brighton, Palace, Swansea, Huddersfield, Southampton, and Stoke.
I think Swansea will be fine too.
Carvajal's come in and
I think he's kind
righted
of
the ship.
Steadied the ship. And Palace should be fine as well. Palace should be fine. It's that bottom 4 and then Brighton. And I don't know about Watford either. Watford have enough talent, though. That's the thing. They have enough talent to get it done. But that bottom 4 and Brighton, I'm not too sure. I'm not really convinced. Southampton should be fine too. So it's really tough. But I could tell you that Everton and Bournemouth, up to Bournemouth, I think they should be fine. I think Newcastle will be fine. And West Ham should have enough to get through. I think Palace have enough too, which is why I don't know why they're kind of stuck in that mud as well. But
like you said, it's a week by week thing going on right now.
And you just need to pick up points where you can. And if you can knock off a big team, then you should be okay. And it's funny that I say Leicester should be fine, because if you watched what happened this weekend, especially specifically in the second half, you would think that, no, they're not going to be fine because they got trounced.
Throttled.
By Manchester City. I want to know what the biggest point for you was. Was it Kevin De Bruyne's hat-trick of assists or Sergio Aguero's 4 goals?
I'd probably say the assists. To me, that's more impressive because Aguero does that. And he does that in spurts where one game he'll just go off and score 4. We've seen him score 5.
Yeah.
But to me, to have 3 assists, that's pretty special. And he continues to... De Bruyne continues to do it week in and week out.
I thought I wasn't impressed with the last assist because I thought he just got too much time. But I thought we were seeing a trend here where the first 2 assists, I like the first 2 assists a lot, specifically the first one, solely based on the fact that it was a first-time cross, and he didn't even give them a chance to close him down. It was just bang, first-time cross. I don't know. Albrighton got exposed. He's not really a defender, so you can understand that. Aguero missed it. Sterling taps it in. And then the second goal was kind of the same thing where he didn't have to take a second touch. It was just first time, and he got it into the box. And Maguire made a hash of it. I thought Leicester was just really poor defending, given the fact that they didn't play bad in the first half, and I thought they got the system right. And then they obviously pounced on Otamendi's mistake, and Vardy scored. But Kevin De Bruyne was struggling to find space, and he had to drift out. He had to switch flanks for a bit, and then he had to drop a bit deeper. And he was kind of really struggling to get in. He did combine with Sterling on a few occasions. Bernardo they marked him very tightly. Aguero didn't really get into the game. He was dropping deep. It was more energetic from him opposed to the Burnley performance. But it was when they had to take off Adrian Silva and bring on Danny Simpson and switch to the 4 that
it changed.
It kind of changed a bit. It was still more of a 4-5-1, but I don't know if you could really blame. I don't know if you could blame the system for City going ahead. Because it was still an element of surprise in terms of De Bruyne hitting that first-time cross, and it was just still more bad defending than City actually carving their way through because they couldn't get through the middle. Leicester really protected that well, and I think that happened, and then after that, everything kind of just dropped, and Schmeichel had a poor second half. By far, probably the worst goalkeeping performance of the weekend in terms of just not getting your kicks right. You have to do that, and he just did not. he did it for the first. And I don't know if I think the third and the fourth goal were his fault. And the fourth one was a poor pass, and Aguero pounced on it. And then I think it was a Schmeichel poor clearance that led to De Bruyne getting the ball, and then him playing in Aguero.
Is that a credit to how City presses?
Well, Walker works hard to press the first time, but there was an incident before that where he just had a poor missed kick, and wasn't down to any pressing. And even the one that Aguero pounced on, like, he shouldn't have just passed it to Dragovic to begin with. He should have just cleared it. So I think it has a lot to do with him, and it's good to see Aguero scoring, I guess, for his sake. And Mahrez played, and he did give them I think he forced Otamendi, or he forced someone into a booking, or Gundogan into a booking after he ran by Otamendi, and probably should have gone up towards goal. But pretty convincing from City, straightforward. Leicester gave him a few problems with the system, switched it up, but again, Kevin De Bruyne is the main talking point here. And I think there was a comment about the Ballon d'Or and Pep saying that it wasn't far-fetched if he were to win it this season, if they won the Champions League. And I think that's very unlike Pep to really say that, because whenever you hear the Ballon d'Or, you hear Pep talking about the Champions League or whatnot, he always seems to reference Messi in that aspect. Whereas, they asked him if he was, earlier on the season, they asked him if Manchester City were favorites to win the Champions League, and he's like, no, because Messi is not on the team. Any team with Messi is the favorite. And I don't think that those are mind games. We've seen the admiration that he has for Messi, and he always speaks highly of him, especially when he goes back to his Barcelona times. But I think for him to mention Kevin De Bruyne in that light just says how much he admires De Bruyne's work rate, his skill set, and how good he really thinks he is. So
he probably said that to light a fire under his ass.
Well, I don't know if you need to. Well, I guess you could
If you hear your own coach talking about how much you admire another player, but he's not lying.
Yeah.
Realistically, in the last, 10 years since somebody else has won a Ballon d'Or?
Yeah.
Well, nobody ever talks about anybody other than Messi and Ronaldo. Other than Neymar, recently, has anybody else ever got within touching distance of that trophy? Maybe Schneider in, 2010? With the whole World Cup Inter Milan thing. He's maybe the last player to slightly get some talk out of those two.
Yeah.
So
and I wasn't having, I don't want to rant about that. I was not having those Schneider talks. But
nobody's come within the conversation. So I think that gives a lot of credit to what De Bruyne's done this year.
Yeah, to pull up the quote so we could really hear what Pep had to say, because I think it's very key. They were asking about it. He said, no doubt, De Bruyne is not one game like this. It's the whole season, every 3 days, playing that way. He knows, and everyone knows, to be there with the award, you have to win the titles, especially won the Champions League, of course. So he's not ruling it out if they win the Champions League.
That's a big ask to go and win the Champions League.
Is what he's trying to say. Hey, I think it's
possible.
I think if they finish within the top four and he has a good World Cup, which is on the cards, he could be in the conversation.
He definitely deserves top 5 type of talk.
Yeah.
Depending on, obviously, how his World Cup goes and how the rest of the Champions League goes.
Yeah, because that could elevate
that seems to always elevate any player, realistically.
Where he could stand. But if we're basing it off now, he's definitely in the conversation.
Yeah, and he's kept it up all season long.
Yeah.
To me, that's what's impressive.
Yeah.
Playing in...
The consistency.
Yeah, the consistency, playing in one of the top leagues where they never seem to have an off day.
Yeah.
And regardless of if it's FA Cup or if it's League Cup, he's always playing as well. He doesn't get very many off days.
And I think that's really key heading into this, so that City need only 6 wins and that's assuming that other teams don't lose, right? So it'll be interesting to see if Pep gives him the rest, finally, that he and a few other players possibly deserve. They have enough depth in the back to get that done now. Sané's coming back. I think he's included in the trip to Basel, so that's key. And Gabriel Jesus should be back very soon. John Stones is back, so they're able to kind of fiddle with things and rest a few players here and there, because apparently they could have the title won by the Manchester derby. So
And that's a scary thought to think that they're getting Sané and Jesus back.
yeah,
Meanwhile, they just
Yeah.
continue to steamroll everybody.
yeah, and David Silva's gonna come back eventually as well. too.
Exactly.
And Fabian Delph, who started the season well, isn't there. Benjamin Mendy, well, I don't even know. We don't even know if he's going to play this season. He's supposed to come back, but like I said, it's all shaping up good for them, and they were very convincing over the weekend. And
It's kudos to Pep and how he's built the team, really.
yeah, and the quadruple is still alive. Wigan next week on Monday in the FA Cup, so that'll be huge to see where they go from there. But I think that was the Premier League talk. I don't think anyone else, not that they don't deserve the limelight, but we only have so much time to really talk about those other great Premier League teams. But we'll get to them eventually.
At some point.
Sooner rather than later.
Of course.
There's always another podcast on Thursday for the Champions League. Maybe we could, we'll see.
I think we're gonna find a way to talk.
We'll find a way. We'll find a way. What else is on your mind? What else did you get to?
We had an impressive weekend for the leaders over in Italy.
Yeah, that race is looking very compelling.
Nobody wants to slip up, and this is usually where you see the less experienced side slip up. But Napoli, even against tough sides, they stay consistent and they're keeping this going.
Yeah, I think that was they beat Lazio 4-1 earlier on this season. Now they beat them 4-1. I'm pretty sure that was at Lazio. It's crazy that I watch a game and I don't know where it was taking place.
It's because we watch too many games. That's the real issue.
But yeah, they were good. It was the contrast of what we saw from Juventus the other night, where Napoli went down very early, and I thought they just weathered the storm. And credit to Lazio. But you could see where the gulf in class is, and you could see that Lazio isn't just there yet, and Napoli is. And they're here to win. Last season, they kind of fell off the tracks. They're here to win this season. And I think it could come down to that Napoli-Juve game where something is going to happen. Because we know Juve could go on an incredible run. That's not far-fetched. But can Napoli do it as well? Can they match them head-to-head? Can they go and beat Juventus? And I think that would be massive. It reminds me kind of that 2012 or 2011 Barcelona-Real Madrid, where Real went to the Camp Nou and then beat them and knocked them off the perch, and then they won. Like, that's what it kind of reminds me of, and I think that's what it may come down to. I don't know. Juventus and Napoli play each other in April on the 22nd. So
it's a stretch from now.
That's a long time away. That's a very long time.
And it might benefit Napoli having Europa League, which they've almost conceded that they're not really going to try for.
Yeah.
Sarri's already said that you can expect a very different starting 11 from him.
I really want it to go down to this because it would just show what this Napoli side is made of. For them to go to Juventus Stadium, probably one of the toughest grounds to go to, and win. Well, they could get a result tie, but they're going to want to win. They're not going to want to tie and just see out the game, and I don't think that's in their DNA to see out a game. But for them to go there and win, because I can't think of many sides this season that have gone to Napoli and won besides City, and Juventus did that this season. Higuain scored when he went back there for the second time. So this is going to be huge, and I want it to go down to this. But Napoli, once again, very good. Hamsik came off in the second half. Zielinski came in, and he kind of kept it going. And they got a bit fortunate with the own goal, but it was coming. And I think Mertens, Insigne, Callejon all played very well throughout. Jorginho, he was pivotal in what they were doing.
His pass on the first goal was something
sensational.
else.
And
they just have pace to burn.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
And they continuously try the over-the-top last man beat the last guy. And how could you not? When you have that pace, you're just going to try to expose the defenders at every turn you get.
Yeah, and they were incredible in that second half, and they got the job done. A bit of fortune here and there, but Lazio, I thought Immobile was good. You rate Savic
Very, very good from what I see.
Savic, very highly, and I think he's very good, and he's going to be somewhere very big soon. But Immobile just seems to be on an island. He runs the channels well.
Yeah, him and Alberto, it kind of felt like they're playing a two-man game with not much support other than the occasional Savic run. But they can't, I don't know, when you're playing against a back four and then you have Koulibaly there, he's not going to give you much space to run at.
Exactly. And for Lazio, I don't think they really lose anything here. Like, this was never going to be a game that they may have expected to win. But after losing last weekend to Genoa...
It's 3 losses in a row for Lazio.
Yeah. And I think that's very big. And I don't know. When I think about that Genoa game, they didn't play that well there as well. So it's very interesting to see because I really wanted them to finish in the top 4. And I think I told you that too long ago. But on a weekend where Inter won, Roma won
5-2. They get leapfrogged.
Yeah.
And just like that, they're in 5th place.
Yeah. I'm going to say Milan won, but I think Milan are too far behind to test the other teams ahead because they still have to leapfrog Sampdoria. But I think that's really huge for Lazio to be slipping down, especially when Inter and Roma weren't playing at their best. So that's key going forward. But as it stands now, Juve, they don't really... I thought they were good this weekend. I thought that was a typical Juventus performance I expect from them. They're winning games. They're not conceding goals. They are so tough to break down. So difficult to break down. And they got the job done. They were never really tested. Bernardeschi scores the free kick. That was a really good free kick.
Yeah, it was quality.
And against his former side, and then Higuain finishes it off later on. And they never really looked like they were in danger, despite not having the ball for most of the game.
But they seemed comfortable without it.
Yeah.
Like they don't need it to win.
Yeah, they get the job done. They're flexible. They have hardworking wingers. Mandzukic, who could play as more of a second striker when he comes off the center, but when he needs to defend, he defends his fullback. Douglas Costa came in to bring in a bit of pace and something different, and they're going to be fine. So it's going to be interesting to see if any other side drops points. But I thought they were good at Fiorentina, tough environment, a place where they've had their difficulties here and there. And they weathered the storm well. They relied on a moment of individual brilliance, and then Higuain finished it off. Douglas Costa provided a spark. And when we look at it, it's just another big win for Juve. And heading into the Champions League against Spurs, they're going to be confident as well. But that was Serie A in a nutshell. That was what I took from it this weekend. And then when we look to Germany, Bayern won. We'll get to Bayern very soon because they got a Champions League date next week. Dortmund won. I think Michy Batshuayi scored again. So I feel like
Royce came back after God knows how long.
So that's always good for them.
Goetze scored as well.
See, that's big too. They need to finish in the. They just need to finish in the Champions League spot and start over next season. But just because Michy's scoring, we have to really figure out what's going on over there to see maybe if they try to... I saw something that they're trying to keep him permanently, but I don't know how much stock we could take into that, how credible it was. I just saw it flash up, and I just kept scrolling. But that's very key. And then what else happened? Spain,
yeah. Barcelona, what's wrong? They broken? No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't watch. I didn't watch, but I figured it could be some fatigue.
You get complacent.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of human and normal.
Well,
to get a little complacent.
Yeah. Well, they played 2 tough games against Valencia over the past 2 weeks, and then go and play another game like a few days later. Not to say that they shouldn't be prepared for that, but that takes a toll, and they've dropped a few points here and there. And now, when you look at the table, we could.
Does it get slightly interesting? With Atletico Madrid being 7 back?
Well, Atletico scored like in the first minute this weekend through Griezmann, and then they just grinded out the game 1-0. So
another forgotten player in a sense
Yeah.
Griezmann.
They've only lost one game this season, Atletico, which I think is crazy.
To think then they're 7 points back.
Yeah.
To think that you could only lose one game and
Yeah.
be 7 points back.
Well, they've drawn a lot. And,
Yeah,
And
course.
Barca haven't lost yet either.
Nope.
But they're
That's
probably
23, I believe, 23, 24, and without losing.
Yeah.
That broke their record.
Yeah. So Atletico just don't have enough goals because they've scored 34. Barca scored 60.
Yeah.
So they're supposed
Barcelona has a plus 49 goal differential.
Yeah.
Madrid has 25.
If we
plus
look at the
25.
defense, Barca's only conceded 2 more. So that just goes to show that, maybe we're not doing our jobs. No, I'm joking. We're doing our jobs properly. But we may need to give Atletico more limelight because they are slowly creeping back into that race. And then Valencia slowly falling out of it. And it looks like Madrid is going to pass them. And it's going to go back to the norm where it's going to be Barca, Atletico Madrid in some shape, form, or order. And Real won this weekend, and that's keys. And with looking at that, it looks like they're hitting top form at the right time, given the fact that they were up like 4-0 in the first half.
I'm not going to lie. I kind of shut it off after that.
But what did you learn from that? Ronaldo scored a hat trick.
Yeah. That's what I learned. Ronaldo scored a hat trick. And that was it. Well, at least they're getting back to, I'm not going to say form because they're not hitting their stride just yet, but they are getting back to that starting 11 that we've seen them do very well. So, and it's been a long time since they've had that front three together, that even though I believe Vasquez started instead of Bale this week.
Yeah, it was Vasquez and Asensio on the flanks.
But even then, they still did well. And I think it's their matchup against Paris Saint-Germain is going to be a lot more interesting than people are giving them credit for. I think it's going to be definitely an interesting matchup, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to PSG this weekend.
They grinded out a 1-0 win, I want to say. I watched until they scored the goal, essentially, to be quite honest. Yeah, it was 1-0 against Toulouse. Toulouse played fairly well. They had their chances. I will say that much, but it was Neymar. Neymar scored as per usual.
That's top analysis.
Yeah, right?
Don't worry, I do that too.
We're doing our job.
Watch until the best team scores and then turn it off. No, PSG, Real Madrid, that is the marquee game of the Champions League. And what do we know about PSG? They're supposed to be the best team in France. They're cruising through the league. They haven't really been tested. It's year after year we hear this, that, well, it's only the French league and they need to show what they have to do, how good they are in the Champions League. And I think this is actually the time where that's factual because of the amount of money they've spent. They brought in Neymar, they brought in Mbappe. It's time. It's gut check time. Show us what you're made of. Show us that you're here. Now, are they going to win the Champions League this season? The Champions League is extremely hard to win. So just because they spent that money, I'm not going to say they need to win, but they need to get past the quarterfinals. They have to.
So the pressure's on them.
Yes, the pressure's on them. Whenever they've come up against a top side in Europe, they've crumbled. And yes, I know they've got past Chelsea, but I'm not putting them in that pedestal. I'm not putting them on that pedestal or in that group. I'm talking about the Barcelona, especially last season. What happened to them?
The collapse, complete collapse.
Like that cannot happen.
No.
And after experiencing that, there has to be some vengeance in their eyes, some sort of determination to really go one step further this year. And when I look at them from top to bottom, they should win this tie.
Think so? I think they're far too attacking almost.
They should win this tie because I don't think in terms of coaching there's much difference between Zidane and Unai. I don't think there's Unai Emery. I don't think there's too much of a difference there. And when you look at their team from top to bottom, yes, it's a bit it's a bit top heavy, but the same could be said for Madrid to an extent as well, except that they're not really firing. And the same could be said because they haven't defended well either this season. I mean, they still conceded 2 to Sociedad, and they've been conceding goals left, right, and center this season. And I think PSG have so many different options that they could throw at Real Madrid. It's just about getting it right. And I really like the Lassana Diarra pickup, and I think that I'm pretty sure Mata's still out, and if they could throw in Diarra, and if he could be anywhere of a shadow to what he was, and I saw him come in to their game a few weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, and he looks like he's just going to be there, sit in front of the defense, break up the play. They need that balance because when they started off the season earlier on with Verratti, with
Rabiot,
with Thiago Motta, I always felt that they were really great going forward, but they looked like they could see too much
space in the back.
On the counter.
That's my issue with them.
And I think having someone like Lassana Diarra there really kind of balances everything out. I'm a huge fan of Rabiot. I think he's a big player, and he's shown it on the biggest stage. So it's about getting it right. And the front three is as good as it's going to get. You have to think that their weakness perhaps is in the wide areas. And
that's why I think potentially, and I think they will, Real Madrid is gonna get them.
But I think it's an old man's battle. Like Ronaldo
still kills Dani Alves at every single chance he gets.
Ronaldo against Dani Alves in 2018 isn't so much what it was in 2012.
And now with the coverage of Diarra, that's very big for them, right?
But there is the aerial advantage there where I think he could expose him. I think that's the two areas where I think that's the area where they could really harm them at, is in the wide areas. And Madrid have players in those areas that could really harm you. But like you said, you can't really count out Madrid in that aspect. They're still the champions. They still have enough quality. I think the battle in midfield is going to be very, very good. Rabiot, Verratti, gunning at Modric and Kroos. Could be a bit of a passing of the torch here.
Do you rate Verratti?
I do, but I'm not too sure he's as good as everyone's made him out to be. I don't think he's a world-class midfielder.
I watched their last couple games and didn't impress me too much. Like, I feel like for a player of his stature, the position that he's trying to play doesn't help him. I feel like he gets muscled off the ball a lot, where that can be a big problem. Whereas even somebody who like Diarra doesn't let players beat him like that. I
think he's a very good midfielder. I don't think he's a world-class midfielder.
No.
And I don't think he's consistently plays at the level that people, like I said, people like to put players on a certain pedestal without them really doing anything. And I don't think he's done anything to be put on that level. I think he's a very good midfielder. I wouldn't put him in the top crop. I don't think he's done anything to give us any reason to put him on that level either. So the way I see it, it's going to be really big. I don't think he's at the level that Modric has been at over the past few seasons, or Toni Kroos. And for him and Rabiot to put on a performance and outplay those two, that would really set the tempo. And then you have Casemiro, who's turned into a very good all-rounder. And if Diarra plays, because he may not play, maybe they play Celso there instead.
Who's been really good.
Yeah.
He's another player I really rate.
So that's another option that
Emery They do have options. They also have Draxler.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of lineup he really does come out with.
I think Celso would be a bit of a gamble given how old he is. I think that game may be too big for him.
Yeah, they need that extra midfielder who's not going to try and get up the field and get lost up there.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like they will miss Thiago Motta over at least the first leg. Maybe he'll be back for the second leg. But the same thing lies for PSG, because how do they deal with Mbappe coming off the right? How does Marcelo deal with it? How do the center backs deal with the movement of Mbappe and Cavani roaming around the box? They know what Neymar's all about. Can they stop him when he has more freedom? And I think this is a big coming of age for Neymar. This is a big game for him. This could be the passing of the torch in that sense, where Ronaldo passes the torch to Neymar.
What happens if he loses?
Who, Neymar?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's gonna put a lot of criticism towards him, and I think he has to win now because of the fact that they're just playing them, and he'll receive a lot of criticism for that. And I think a lot of people have seen what he's done in the French league, and that's fine. It's all fun and games, but they're expecting him to deliver, and they'll expect nothing less than that. So it'll be interesting. I think PSG are slight favorites given the fact that I think they have the better team. And I'm not too sure that Zidane... I think in terms of, from a tactical perspective, I don't know if Zidane can outcoach another manager. So when he plays a team that is as good as his, it's very interesting to watch and see how Madrid perform, because I think PSG are as good. And I don't think Emery's a great tactician either, but they both have done very well in cup competitions in the past. So it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds.
Definitely be a hell of a game. It might very well come down to the wide game, like you mentioned before.
It should be.
If either sets of fullbacks can keep up with their counterparts.
Yeah.
Really.
There should be a lot of goals. But I don't want to say that, then we get like 2-0.
There's nothing wrong with the 0-0. Definitely that. I'll say that much.
There's not, but when you're expecting goals, you kind of want.
I don't expect a repeat of last year with Barcelona and PSG. It very well could get that way, but I don't expect it. I think both teams are going to kind of be like apprehensive at first to just let it fly, because they know the opposite side can score goals.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a battle of the midfield, like you mentioned.
I hope so.
Should be good. It has everything to be a classic, as they thought.
Well, it should be the match of the round. So
no, I thought you were gonna say of the day, but then Porto Liverpool is definitely gonna be the match of that day.
Oh well, I feel like if there's anyone that could really inform us of what Liverpool has coming their way, it would be you.
You want my biased opinion or the real opinion?
If you
feel like I gotta turn my fan off and like not be the whole hum regular fan analysis right now.
So tell me why Liverpool is gonna succumb to Porto.
No, honestly, if I'm being honest, I'd like to think that Porto have everything in them to stop Liverpool, especially because I've watched a little bit of Liverpool, and obviously they're dangerous on the attack. Salah and Mane will run at you and kill you every chance they get. But I also think Porto losing Danilo was huge for them. He's been the catalyst, the engine. He's almost, I want to say, the identity to that team. He's probably been the best player the last 2 to 3 years, barring maybe Brahimi this year. And I would venture to say Alex Telles, he's very well been their best player. So not having him is going to be tough. Sergio Conceição in the last few games since he's went down has gone to like a two-man midfield with Herrera and Sergio Oliveira, which have both been immense and have absolutely dominated all the opposition and throttled Sporting, didn't give them much to work with. Yeah, it was a close game. It was only a 1-0 win in the League Cup, but Sporting didn't really have too many opportunities, and they've played well together. I don't expect him to play in that two-man midfield, to be quite honest. He hasn't done that in the big games all year. He'll probably drop another midfielder into the mix, and he won't play with Corona wide. So in the league, they usually go 4-2-4 with Sergio Oliveira and Herrera in the middle. Herrera's had a fantastic bounce-back season. And then they'll go with Brahimi on one side, Boubacar Marega in the middle, with Corona on the right. I don't see him doing that. He's going to need the extra midfielder, especially to deal with the front three of Liverpool. You can't have a two-man midfield try and keep up with Firmino and the two wide players. That's not really going to work, at least in my opinion. And he's shown us all year, whether it be in the Champions League or big games in the league, between even Benfica and Sporting, that most times he's going to go to his preferred three-man midfield. And then the winger or the two wingers, Brahimi and then Marega, would play wide, where they tuck back as well. And then they play defense. So you almost go to a five-man midfield in a sense when needed.
Yeah.
When you feel like you're pushed back against it.
So I have two questions in that respect. The manager is getting a lot of praise for what he's doing. And why is that? What separates him? How have Porto bounced back from what they've been doing over the past few seasons? Because it hasn't been all sales over.
No, it's been a rough 3 years we're going on now without any trophies or anything like that. But he's come in, and and put the spirit back in the team. He's a coach who's not afraid to voice his opinion, whether it be good or bad. So he's not afraid to say what he wants to say. He'll get in your face.
So it'd be nice to see him against Klopp.
Yeah, he'll definitely be interesting. That's for sure. But he's rejuvenated the side. Porto have not... We've had an issue in the last few years where we lost the small games. There would be those games where they would just grind out a 0-0 game where they have all the opportunities in the world and just unable to finish. But he's changed that spirit. There hasn't been... I'm not speaking just being a fan. Other than a couple games in the Champions League, Porto haven't been outplayed very many times this year. They've been in every single match. And that goes to show because they haven't lost all year in the league. Only them and Barcelona, I believe, are the only remaining teams in the Champions League that are undefeated in the domestic league.
Yeah.
So they've been good. And he's brought that spirit back. He brought back players that weren't needed or wanted really, and revitalized them. He brought back Marega. He brought back Abubakar. Sergio Oliveira was on loan with him at Nantes. And there's options. I feel like coming off the bench, there is some options. Like in the center back, we're going to be missing Philippe, who had a stupid red card in his last game of the Champions League, so he's probably going to have to play with the Mexican Reyes. But there's just options. He brought back Ricardo, the right back, who's honestly, I almost want to say probably the best right back in Portugal right now and might be the starting right back for Portugal. And I think that it might come down to him covering Salah and how that matchup plays out. That's going to be very, very important. But we'll see. I have faith that they could at least keep it a close tie. And I don't believe they'll get blown out. Are Liverpool favorites? Of course. The English side is always favorites. We have a history of not doing that fantastic against English sides. I remember Arsenal, a 5-0 loss.
Yeah.
Nicholas Bender scoring goals.
Yeah.
But we also have a Kostinga against Manchester United moment that I'll never forget, right?
Yeah.
But it should be good. It's either going to go two ways. There's either going to be a close tie or they're both teams that are capable of scoring a ton of goals. So it's going to be interesting how one team finds a way to cover Salah, and then Liverpool's also going to have to deal with Marega running at them, who's behemoth, but he's quick. And he's not afraid to get into matches. So it's going to be interesting. I think the wide play is going to be extremely important. And then we'll see from there, really.
With Liverpool, it's more of the fact that they're so Jekyll and Hyde, so we don't know what to expect. But I always felt like they're the perfect cup side, but they still don't really do good in cup competitions. But nights at Anfield are always key, and that could determine the tie over the two legs. So I think Porto, one, they can't concede an away goal, and they need to really stay tight. And then if they can nick something at Anfield, which is possible given the way Liverpool play, anything is possible there. But yeah, it's dealing with Salah, dealing with Mane, the pace that they offer, and they're going to offer pace. And Porto just have to find the right balance between defending deep and going forward and attacking the fullbacks and getting at Matip or getting at Lovren or even forcing Van Dijk out of his box as opposed to just delivering crosses in. And I think the midfield battle is going to be very interesting as well, because in terms of the pressing, in terms of whether Porto could weather that storm, and vice versa, how disciplined could that Liverpool midfield be? Can they control it? And I think it's going to be an open tie. Obviously, yeah, Liverpool are favorites, but you just can't trust them. And as good as they've been, yes, they've made a Europa League final, but regardless of that, they can't be trusted. And if Porto could stay solid defensively, they're in it for a chance. And I think that rests for any team that's going to face Liverpool in this competition if they go on to progress, or even for the remainder of the season. It's just about finding that fine balance. So we've seen teams do it in the Premier League. So this is a real calling for them, because this is where Liverpool want to be. And if they want to be here, then they need to deliver on nights like this. And that's going to be key.
Because realistically, Porto are a team they should beat.
Yes.
If they want to be considered one of the top sides in the world,
yeah,
This is a team that you shouldn't lose to.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it's going to depend on which team decides to show up.
Yep.
Which Liverpool we get.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting.
We'll see. Basel, Manchester City. Basel, we will give you the time of day if you get the job done in the first leg. But everyone's writing you off. I'm not writing you off, but we'll get back to you later this week on Thursday, and we'll judge you based on your first leg performance. Sorry, Basel fans. We are slowly running out of time, but the other big game, Spurs, Juventus, both sides playing very well. If we're going to be honest, Harry Kane's form really worries me. I know Spurs look very good. Their pressing is very good, but I just think that Juventus's experience, the way they defend as a unit, the way that they could still score goals and grind out games, I don't know if they're going to be able to get over this hurdle. And I think Juventus are very underrated. I don't know if it's the fact that they play in Italy or the fact that they haven't really performed that great this season, but if you watch them from a week-to-week basis, they just find ways to get it done. And I haven't been convinced with what Spurs have done from a defensive aspect. I think they've made a lot of mistakes over the past few weeks. I think they could have lost against Liverpool. They could have lost against Arsenal. The United game, they started very well, and I guess we give them a pass there because United didn't really get going. But this Juventus side have too many weapons, and whether it be Douglas Costa or Martuidi breaking from midfield, or Pjanic running the show, or Gonzalo Higuain, who doesn't get the credit that he deserves, Mandzukic in the box. I just think there's so many different avenues that they can harm them. And I think the center back pairing of Benatia and Chiellini, who have arguably been the best defensive pairing in the world this season, ahead of Buffon, I think they could really shut down Harry Kane. And I think Juve edges it out narrowly, but the first leg is very key. The first leg is in Turin. So if
they can nick an away goal, that changes everything.
If Spurs can nick an away goal, that would be huge. And I think Pochettino has to go for it. They need to get something there. They have goals in them. Kane could always give you a goal. They've done well against the big sides in Europe this season, but I don't think Real Madrid and Dortmund have played at the level that Juventus have played at this season, and I just think that they're a class above. And they're where Spurs want to be, but I don't think Spurs are there yet, and I think this will be a great learning lesson for them. I don't think they'll get beat down or get trounced, but I think Juve have the experience to really manage the game. They have the players to manage the game, and I think they can get it done. But it will be interesting if Spurs can hit that press, how Juve cope with it. They could cope with it from building out the back, but if you could press a Khedira, if you could press, if they play Marquisio in there, if they could get under Pjanic's skin, I think that will be key.
I would probably have to agree wholeheartedly with your analysis. They're the type of team that very well could get a goal. Do I expect them to get past Juventus? I don't. Do I expect it to be a good tie, closer than maybe some people think? Yeah, because if Kane decides to have his shooting boots on for the first time in a little while, he can very well do some damage. But then it's going to come to, is he going to be able to get that service? Is Son going to be able to get a little bit of space? How much space are we going to see Eriksen have? Yeah. You mentioned Juventus's midfield. They don't give you very much room to operate.
They close the lines extremely well.
Yeah, so either he's going to have to drop a lot deeper to pick up possession of the ball, or he's just not going to have too much of it. So we might have to see Spurs play a little bit of counterattack and see how they can hit quickly on the break.
And they've done it well where they've had Son and Kane play up front and play that 3-5-2. I think they could go in that direction tomorrow night or tonight when you guys listen to this. And that would be interesting because I think they do that very well where they have Kane and Son breaking into the channels, breaking with pace. But Spurs are so flexible, they could go anyway, and it'll be interesting to see how they approach Juventus. And Juventus are flexible too. They could play multiple systems. Sanchez and Vertonghen need to be at their best. I don't think Dyer should be playing at center back, but it'll be interesting. I think this is the tie that I'm looking forward to because I really like watching Juventus play. I think they're very good and underrated, and the Spurs team have been a joy to watch. And when we look at it, it could be a memorable tie, and it could be another stepping stone to the Harry Kane legend. and Spurs evolving as a team, or it could be Juventus once again proving that you should never, ever count them out or look past them.
It'll be good. It'll be a fun midweek.
Yep.
That's for sure.
But we got all your Champions League coverage for you here at the InnerViews Podcast. We'll be back on Thursday to break down all the midweek games and anything else that we possibly missed today that we think matters.
Who knows what will happen in the next few days?
And we did say it was episode 3.
Episode 3.
Episode 3. We're back. Not leaving anytime soon. You know where to find us. The InnerViews. Search that on YouTube. You can iTunes. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to on iTunes to our podcast.
Tell your friends. Let everybody know.
Friends, family, girlfriend, boyfriend, sister, and coworker, employee, random stranger on the subway, random stranger driving next to you, random biker, the guy that serves you lunch, dinner, breakfast, wherever, your coffee in the morning. They'll be willing to listen to us.
Drop comments. Let us know.
What we
you don't always have to agree with us.
Yeah.
You're not always going to agree with us.
Yeah, we're wrong sometimes. Not very rare, but we're
Apparently,
wrong sometimes.
we're wrong.
So let us know. And we'll tell you why we think we're right, and we'll go back and forth. But this was the 3rd episode of the InnerViews Podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed, and you'll hear from us very, very soon. And we hope that you guys enjoy the midweek games. And we're out.
That's a wrap.